Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And we have a returning guest who appeared back in October 2024, so not too long ago, which was episode 479. Robert Reckford is the CEO of RUA Gold, a junior gold mining exploration company exploring two historic high-grade gold districts across New Zealand. Robert is a chartered accountant and also has a master's in mineral economics and began his career as a mining auditor and consultant at EY before moving on and becoming founding member of two successful mining ventures. He's been at the helm as the CEO of RUA Gold for nearly 18 months and he's going to give us an update on the company since we last spoke. An update on New Zealand as a mining jurisdiction, because there's a lot of changes that have happened. Also going to look at how they work with some of the local communities and what factors influence the company's strategic decision and the use of AI in exploration. So we're covering a lot of subjects here. So Robert, welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing?
Great to be here, Rob. No, it's good to touch base again. October sounds far away, but a lot's happened in between there as well.
Yeah, it was 7 months away. So, and I imagine a lot has happened since then. So, as we always kick these podcasts off, I just want to just tell us a little bit about your career and about your background for those that didn't listen to the previous episode.
Sure, no, 100%, and you've nailed the high level pretty well. I'm an accountant by trade, but I've sort of steered a bit away and more into the business side of mining. I've never touched anything but mining. Even in my EY career, I jumped straight into the auditing and consulting for mining companies, and so it's been an interest from mine since the start. When I was a young lad, my dad was a mining investor, so he got me looking at these companies very early. So I love the industry, and I live and breathe it. I'm a bit of a mining nerd. If anyone follows me on LinkedIn, I love a good macro discussion or a political geological discussion. I've accountant by trade, spend probably more time than most accountants on site. I lived in the Congo for a while on a copper mine. The last 8 years since moving to Vancouver, about half my life was spent down in Mexico or Colombia or Brazil, where we've had our previous operations. So that's the nice thing. It takes you to some exotic and non-exotic places that you might not otherwise go. And yeah, I think now in this role that I've been in for the last 18 months, I've always been in that finance focused role. So previously to RUA Gold, I was at Aris Mining as their CFO, and you look at the business and you look at the how it's operating, and from a cash flow perspective, you look at how we can improve efficiencies operationally, and that's where I think the role is so key, is to have that good finance base as well as understanding the business, so you can link up, because a mine manager or a mine manager needs to maximize tons out the mine. A plant manager is to maximize throughput and recovery, and no one in that whole process is talking about doing it in the most cost efficient way possible, which is sort of my role. Now, sitting at RUA Gold, you wear every single hat. And so I sit with you and chat about what we're up to, what we're doing politically, how the capital markets are. And so I love it. It's a smaller company than I was at previously, but the role is really broad, and you get to touch on a bit of everything. It's fun.
I would like to welcome our sponsor, Hawcroft. Founded in 1992, they provide property risk management services to the mining and other industries, using their knowledge, perception, and expertise to offer true foresight across all aspects of mining and infrastructure. Their insurance risks surveys are recognised as the industry standard, as their reports are comprehensive, ensuring underwriters are well informed of risks surrounding your operation and quality control of those risks. Working with some of the biggest mining companies in our industry and across 600 sites, Hawcroft offer insurance risk surveys, construction risk reviews, asset critical and speciality assessments for a variety of mining, processing, smelting, materials handling, power, refining, port and rail operations. So if you're looking for a premium bespoke property risk management and risk engineering service, then contact Horcroft today or visit their website at www.horcroft.com. All details are enclosed in the show notes accompanying this episode. Before we get an update since we last spoke, I just wanted to give the audience a snapshot of RUA Gold.
Yeah, Rua Gold has been around for around 6.5 years now, and it's been public since I came along 18 months ago. We have two really high-grade assets down in New Zealand. We've got drills turning at the South Island in Reefton. And as you said, both areas are historic gold producers. So in the Reefton district, where we have essentially the entire district locked up, that area is called Reef Town because there was a whole bunch of gold reefs there. And so you're in an area where we know there's gold. It hasn't been touched in any significant way since the 1950s, and we're there to drill it out now. So we actually had some drill results out yesterday, and we can chat through that. And then in the North Island is our second project, and that one's an earlier stage exploration, but it's sort of elephant hunting country. And I think one of the famous Lundin quotes is, if you're not hunting for elephants, then there's no point going out there, because mining is a risky business. And so there's no risk reduction by going small. The bigger you go, the more you sort of de-risk it in a sense. And so there's some big deposits up there in the North Island. It's epithermal type area. We're just north of an oceanic gold mine that's produced 10 million ounces and is still producing today. And next to a project, they've got 1.5 million ounces of 18 grams a ton gold at. So we're in area of big deposits, and it's great to be in the backdrop of a favorable political party that really wants mining there. So New Zealand and their government and the way they're operating these days is to really promote foreign investment and mining to kickstart in a big way.
Last time we spoke, as mentioned last October, which was 6-7 months ago, what's happened in the New Zealand macro landscape from your perspective?
Yeah, I think so. We give a bit of context. The new political party came in November 2023, so they've been in a year and a half now, and they essentially came in to a country that was in an economic recession. There was not many jobs there, and essentially they had a platform, and how they got into power was to say, we're going to actually just focus on the economy and improve it. And one of the vehicles to do that they saw was mining. And so one of the first things they did before all the other countries, the EU or the US, were talking about fast-tracking mining projects or putting together a critical list of mining projects, New Zealand were already a year ahead. And they said, the way that we're going to help mining in New Zealand is actually just cut the red tape and get permitting done quicker. And it's not to take shortcuts or anything like that. It's just that the world we live in has continually added more and more regulation, that they start overlapping and you start doing double the work for two different governing bodies. So they cut out all of that. And so the first law they passed, which was drafted at the start of 2023, now fully enacted at the end of 2024, is called a fast track permitting process. And you can now get a mine permitted in New Zealand in 6 months' time. So it's world class, it's world leading, it's an amazing time frame, so that investors aren't sitting for 2, 3, 4, 10 years, in Canada's sake, to wait to get a mine permitted. People just don't have that investment time frame horizon at the moment. So that's probably the most important. Outside of that, in January this year, they also put together a critical minerals list. It's the first time New Zealand has ever had a critical minerals list. Included on that list is gold. And antimony. We're a gold antimony deposit down in the South Island, and so it's great to be recognized as sitting on a New Zealand critical mineral, because that'll also help with the permitting and how we take this project forward. But just to speak to how important mining is to New Zealand, they even put met coal on the critical mineral list. And listeners are going to think, what the hell's coal doing on a critical minerals list? But it's the world we live in, where what was happening in New Zealand is that because you got these anti-mining sentiments that were there in the past, they shut down any expansion or growth of any of their local coal deposits and coal mines. And as a result, they don't have energy security to secure their own energy. They were having brownouts. And so they're importing coal from Indonesia. And so it's very backwards, because the New Zealand coal produced is really clean, it's high efficiency, it's done locally. So all your environmental regulations are met and exceeded, as opposed to going to Indonesia, where the environmental regulations aren't as strict, and you're now importing dirtier, less efficient coal into the country. So I think this political party is refreshing, because it's doing things that are just sensible and make sense, as opposed to try and cater to the as they say, the wokeisms of today.
And obviously, talking about political parties, you've obviously been speaking to Minister Shane Jones quite a lot, and we're going to be having him on the podcast in the coming weeks. So, how's your relationship with not just, I suppose, Shane, but the Minerals Council of New Zealand? How has that developed since you've been in the role?
I think that's a really important point, and just, I mean, a plug for your podcast. I mean, if anyone has the chance to listen to that Shane Jones podcast with Rob that will be coming up, I mean, that is going to be 100% amazing, because Shane Jones is an amazing orator, and he's a no-nonsense politician, and he just says it how it is. And so it's going to be great to hear him. I obviously don't have a clue what he's going to say, but I'm definitely going to be tuning into it, because anytime he speaks, people listen. He has a great way of presenting things, and so that's great. You've got him on the podcast. The relationship we have him is very strong. For instance, in PDAC in Toronto in March, we worked symbiotically with NZPAM, which is the New Zealand Petroleum and Minerals, IMBI, which is their Minister of Business and Innovation and Enterprise, and Shane Jones, and that's part of his teams. And we helped actually arrange co-investment discussions. He met some of our key investors at RUA. We did a side-by-side breakfast with Shane Jones, RUA Gold, who's a major mining player in New Zealand, and RUA Gold. And we did a breakfast out to 60 of the most influential bankers of the world of mining investing, essentially. And so when you've got your mines minister up there standing on the podium saying, come and invest in New Zealand, and come and stand with us and be part of this new wave that's coming, it's very encouraging. But yeah, no, that we have a very open relationship. I think the one key thing is, when you're only a country of 5 million and there's probably a handful of mining companies amongst that country, you get a lot more attention than, to say, if you're in Canada or Australia with the plethora of mining companies that are out there.
Why don't you just give us a quick update on what's been happening since we did last speak on the company and the projects that you're involved in?
Yeah, sure. The essentially key updates since October. Wow, I mean that was a quite a stalemate time of the company, in the sense that we were pregnant with a deal that hadn't quite closed yet, and that deal was to take over the entire Reefton district, and we had about 40% of the land package there, and we'd announced a deal, and an interloper had come in twice to try and outbid us for this land down in the South Island of New Zealand. Federation Mining was the interloper, and they're the other neighbor. And so you've got these three parties in Reefton all vying for control. Luckily, I'm sitting here today, and we were the successor, and we took over the Reefton district, and now we have 95% of this gold field. And as I said, it's a gold field full of old gold reefs that were mined in the 50s that haven't been touched significantly since then. And we have 95% of the tenements there. Federation Mining, the guys that unfortunately lost out in that bidding war, held 5%. And now we're uncovering the rest of that district. So we've got 2 drills down there turning. We had some great drill results yesterday. We actually, one of the pieces of land, so that deal closed in November. We got all our permits and access sorted by April. and we started drilling. And the first two drill holes into this target down in Reefton, we hit I've got it here, 14 meters of 3.5 grams a ton, including a meter of 26.9 grams a ton. I mean, that's almost an ounce a ton. That's the average grade, just for reference, being produced today is less than a gram a ton. So we're getting some really nice wide and high grade intercepts, but most importantly, it was only from 65 meters deep. And so you're not drilling into the Earth's core and looking for really deep, high grade gold. You're finding it right near the surface, which for me, again, putting my finance hat back on, when I think about how do we develop this into a mine, it becomes really economical because you're doing a very short decline to get into the ore body. So yeah, really exciting updates. Outside of that, our second rig is focused on a different style of mineralization down there. So we've got that high grade gold at Cumberland in the Reefton district. The other drill rig is at an area called Old Creek, and that's this gold antimony type deposit we're talking about. And antimony is really interesting in the sense that it is the most scarce critical mineral of critical minerals. So every country has antimony on their sort of critical minerals list. Everyone's focused on supply chain. China's done what China do best, and they've cut the exports of antimony. And now we're in this world where we're sitting on New Zealand's biggest antimony deposit. We've already proven up an 8,000 ton resource, and that's at $60,000 a ton. So it's a really high value byproduct at the end of the day. So we're hitting these big gold antimony type veins down in Old Creek. The aim there is we want to get to a resource by the end of the year north of 350 to 500,000 ounces of gold equivalent. So that's gold and antimony added together. And so we think we're on track there. We've extended the current resource down at depth another 100 meters. We're going north 100 meters and making sure it extends on strike. And if we can achieve that and really prove the continuity, I think we're onto a bit of a mine starter there.
How does the company engage with local communities and obviously indigenous groups within the country?
So we've already touched on the government side of things. So we're pretty well covered off in terms of making sure we're working well with the government. In New Zealand, there is an obligation, but also a responsibility for companies to always engage with, they call the iwis there, the Maori groups. And we have two different groups in the North and South Island with who we deal with. And it's a consenting process. So we make sure we engage with them. We send them letters of updates. We offer to meet them and give them updates on what we're doing as a company. And we like to work with the local communities there. We're not sitting on Maori land. We're not asking them for anything. It's right now just this is what we're doing. Do you see it good as a positive thing? Do you have any comments? Do you have any feedback? And right now it's all been essentially keep going. You're doing the right thing. Keep moving. The one thing, I've worked in a lot of jurisdictions in the world, and the most refreshing thing about the Kiwis, and we've touched on the politicians there, but they're all very just practical and down to earth. So you've got Maoris there that for the first time in my career, you've got a local indigenous group that really actually want to work with you a lot more than you see normally, and really are very savvy business owners. And so that when they see the opportunity for a 30-year mine going into Reefton, they want to see it succeed and they want to see us do it properly and responsibly. But they also want to be part of that journey, whether it's through the investment side or whether it's through a supplier side, or they want to understand how they can also help and be part of the journey. So it's really nice, as opposed to sort of this concept, and I'm getting into sort of some hot waters here, but this concept that you're on their land and you're taking something that belongs to them and you owe them, and that sort of preconception, you don't get that in New Zealand. You're there as a partner. You're there as someone that's helping improve the betterment of all, and all boats rise together. And it's very refreshing from that sense. And then on the community engagement, I think that's also really key. We're going to be tapping into a local labor force in New Zealand that is, again, we've talked about it. It's a country of 5 million. It's not huge. I'll probably be giving my mate Rob Tyson a call to find some expats around the world to come in and move there. But at the same time, there's a local mining population which is already established. But I'm very cognizant that if you've got this government really conscious of pushing mining, you're going to get a lot more mining projects and you're getting a lot more sort of competition for these good workers. So I'm very conscious that we also should be looking across the water and saying all those Kiwis that couldn't find jobs in Australia, in New Zealand, that had to resort to going to Australia to work on the mines there, start coming home, because there is going to be mining jobs there. So I'd love to see, and that's actually what the government are trying to do by getting mining going, is get those high paying jobs back into New Zealand and get the Kiwis coming home so that everyone's kids aren't moving overseas. So I'd love to see the resurgence of Kiwis coming back, and we work with the communities and we make sure everyone knows what we're doing and they know a timeline we're on, because right now we employ directly circa around 10 people, and then indirectly through contractors probably another 40 on top of that. So we're a small fish at this point, but we've got some growth ahead of us, and it's only going to get more engaged as we keep going.
Yeah. I wonder if you can just follow on from that and speak about the, I suppose, the mining labour force, whether it is tradespeople, operators, tradespeople, through to more senior people, whether it's technical or more operational people. What is the makeup of New Zealand in terms of skilled labour within the mining industry? And I suppose, where do you see there might be gaps, or where can there be improvements be made with more and more projects coming online like yourselves, and obviously with these laws permitting having been 6 months now, it's going to encourage more and more investment, which will encourage more and more people to come to New Zealand, and then require people with certain skills in the mining industry. So I just wonder if you can comment on that.
Yeah, right now there's a number of operating mines down in New Zealand, and RUA Gold are the biggest gold miner. They've got one gold mine in the South Island, one in the North Island, and a big project as well, expansion project up there. And then you've got coal miners right in Reefton and around us down in the South Island, mineral sands. So you've got a number of different mining groups already operating in New Zealand. But that is, and really, I mean, I think New Zealanders are known to be really good workers, both from the executive level all the way down to the guys operating in the mine. I think they're very hardworking, very dedicated, very loyal, all the things you sort of want when you're looking for someone to come in. But I do see that risk that as everyone's kicking off these projects, and as a lot more traction gets going on what the new developments look like, there's something like 11 mines in that fast track process right now. So I do foreshadow that there will be a bit of a skills shortage locally when everyone's vying for the same workforce. And so it's something that we need to consider. There is a huge, I've worked in Australia for a long time, and it's actually funny, I sit on the plane because my family are back in Australia. So I'm leaving New Zealand. When I've done my site visit, I'll go and pop through Australia on the way back home, and I'll go and visit the family, and I'll be sitting next to a few Kiwis, and they're all coming off summer holidays, going back to work in Australia, and they just spent a month back with their families in New Zealand. So, and I chat to them openly about it. I said, well, why don't you get a mining job back in New Zealand? And they just said there just wasn't any around. So we're forced to go overseas. We're forced to leave our families. And we'd love to see that opportunity to look abroad and look at Kiwis abroad and say, come back home, and you've got the visa, you've got a good quality of life there, bring the jobs home. And that's, I think, where it might get to. The risk of all of this is that you get paid pretty well in Australia. It's known as one of the highest cost labor rates in the entire world for mining. And so are we going to be bringing them back at the same Aussie rates? It's yet to be determined. But you can also say the cost of living in New Zealand is cheaper, so we'd have some sort of in-between adjustment there.
What are some of the biggest challenges you faced since being at the helm of RUA Gold over the last 18 months, and how have you overcome any of the challenges, if you've had any challenges? How have you overcome them?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think I probably went head first and overestimated myself in the sense of how many people would back me into this project, and it all comes down to the money raising in junior mining and how much support do you get, and we're lucky we get actually phenomenal support because we're a team of people from the board and management that have created a lot of value for institutions and investors in the past. So we've created from $2 billion that we've raised in the capital markets, we've exited companies exceeding 11 billion. So we've had a good return for investors in the past, and so we see some support. But that is always my biggest challenge is balancing how much time can I sit there focusing on the business and unfolding the business and letting it actually achieve what it needs to achieve from an exploration point of view, and have that roadmap to build it into a mine, which isn't usual for exploration companies. But at the same time, navigate the capital markets and make sure that we've all got an eye on the till and that we're always looking for what the next raise looks like and what price do we do it at to make it the least dilutive for our shareholders and ourselves. I mean, it was a big risk coming here. I've got a young family, and I was at a nice cushy mining job. It wasn't cushy. It was tough, but it was a solid wage, and it was a producing gold mining company. And so I left that. I took about an 80% pay cut to lead RUA Gold as a junior explorer, and you're sort of hand to mouth in terms of financing and then drilling. And I think that is the biggest challenge is the junior mining space is very broken, and people the lack of investment in that space is palatable. I mean, we're seeing all-time gold prices, all-time high gold prices. We're seeing all-time high antimony prices, yet the actual flow of funds hasn't come into the junior mining market. There's a bit more funds going into the majors and the producers and things like that. But if you're trying to stand up a project, you're not actually getting any additional money into this market than ever before. So again, I say we're lucky because we have a number of institutions that back us, but the biggest challenge, and probably something I underestimated, is that need to always have an eye on where the next check is coming from. The nice thing is, and as that market shifts, which it currently is, you're getting a world now where mid-tiers and producers are sitting on a wall of cash that they actually don't know what to do. They've never had these sort of margins. They've never had so many dividends paying gold stocks and share buybacks out of gold companies. They actually don't know what to do with the cash. And the smart ones, and I think listeners, if anyone wants to know what the leading class gold producer does with cash, you always look at Agnico Eagle. Agnico Eagle is the best in class at how they operate mines and how they expand the business. And they're not sitting there. I mean, they do dividends and they do buybacks, but they actually reserve a pool of cash for investing into explorcos because they're not explorationists. They're mine operators, and they like to grow the business. But they couldn't understand an exploration program if it bit them on the bum for a new jurisdiction. If it's their own mines, then they're great at it. But they're not going into uncharted territories. What they're doing is they're investing in smaller companies around the world where they see jurisdictional fit, and they'll let the explorationists do what they do best, and then they'll move in when the time is right. So I think the long answer to all of that is flow of funds and capital is always the number one concern in life.
Obviously, gold has been on a tear for the last 12 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. What are your views, and how do you see it coming to a peak? If it's not already at a peak, just wondering if you can give us your views on the gold price. And I'm not asking for any predictions.
My non-biased views as a gold miner. No, I think the gold. I mean, it's interesting. Gold isn't normally here to be a 30% year on year gainer in appreciation. So gold is a hold of value. And so anyone investing in gold shouldn't expect a 30% return every year that you might have seen in the last year, 18 months, even 2 years. But really, I like to, because again, I'm a macro nerd, I'm a mining nerd. I like to actually flip it on its head and say, is it gold appreciating, or is it currencies devaluing at the end of the day? I mean, gold is a measure of wealth, and I've seen plenty of memes out there on my LinkedIn about one gold bar buying you a house in the 1920s and one gold bar buying you a house today, and that is the sign of fiat currency coming apart. I mean, it's the fact that the governments have been so reckless in printing so much money that the currency itself is devaluing. And so it's not gold appreciating, it's everything else devaluing around it. And so if you think about it in that sense, then you suddenly say, are we at peak? Probably not, because the governments aren't balancing their budgets. They're still operating at deficits. No one can buy the US bonds anymore. No one wants to buy US bonds. Like they're unable to offload this treasury debt that they have. And so no, I'm not going to put a price on it, but I think currencies will continue to devalue, and the outcome of that is gold is actually seen to be appreciating. But I think if listeners can understand that gold is the safe haven against inflation, and inflation comes in many different forms, whether it is through, as the governments report inflation, or whether it's just through the actual amount of debt that governments are building up and printing money, then they should see that gold's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. And I suppose following on from that, I suppose all of this really started in 1971 when they took gold off the standard. So basically that's allowing them to print as much money as they want because it wasn't backed by by a commodity like gold in 1971 when Nixon took it off the gold exchange or dollar exchange. So that's probably the reason why the dollar, which was the world is, and still is at the moment, the world reserve currency, and that's why it has devalued the currency more so from that period onwards.
Yeah. Maybe to your podcast, but maybe a question for you is you touched on it. If the dollar isn't around in the future, what do you foresee as the next global currency? Because I think enough people are now talking about the fact that will the dollar be the global currency for much longer, and what's going to take its place?
I suppose from speaking to people that I speak to and from podcasts and videos that I listen to, I think there will be a new monetary system come in play. And I think there might be a few attempts to bring in a new system. What system will work? We don't know that yet. And I believe it will be pegged to commodities, whether that's gold, whether that's other commodities. You've got the BRICS nations having and discussing having a few different commodities to back a currency. So I don't think there's a clear sign as to what currency will necessarily be a world reserve currency. And I think there'd be a few attempts to get that right over a period of time. But I believe it will be backed by a commodity. It's always generally been, and more recently, generally backed by gold. And I think gold will play a significant role in that because a lot of central banks are purchasing record amounts of gold and have increasingly been doing that over the last few years. So yeah, from my perspective, gold will play a significant role, but there may be other commodities that will play a part in whatever currency that we will be dealing with. There could be again one currency. There could be separate currencies. I'm not. It's a little bit above my pay grade. I'm a recruiter, but that's from some of obviously from people that I listen to and some of the content that I listen to as well. That's That's
No,
my
we
take on
won't.
it.
We'll keep our tinfoil hats off for this podcast, and won't talk about the world ending.
Yeah, no, no. Um, you're pretty vocal on the use of AI in exploration. I just wonder if you can just break down, I suppose, into real life examples of whether it's forging any breakthroughs at the moment. And I suppose AI is still in early stages, but yeah, I just wonder if you can give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we're using a product called Verify AI. Their AI tool is called Dora, and actually the press release we put out yesterday, and we're sitting here on the 28th. So the press release that came out on the 27th for Rua Gold was an AI targeting of our gold mineralization, and it was a brand new target. Essentially, the way we've used AI is because we have such a large land package, because we have a huge amount of data that came with that land package. A lot of people have picked over this area in the past, but without putting it all together. And by having this AI, you can now take huge data sets and put it into this model. And it doesn't give you the answer. It leads you to challenge things you might not have looked at, for instance. And I'm not a geo, so I'm only taking this from what my geos down in New Zealand tell me, is that they potentially it's twofold. It goes through and runs iterations on all of the information you have, and whether that's soil sampling, mapping, resistivity, structural mapping, you can look at all that data, or the machine can look at all that data and run iterations and work out what is the highest ranked target to go after in this whole district of 120 odd thousand hectares. It's huge. And so we can go in and really understand in a much quicker sense where we should be focusing, and that's where we landed at Cumberland. Our drill target ranked really high on the Verify AI platform. On the flip side of we put a few drill holes into Cumberland, and we zoom in on it. The AI is not at the point where it's telling you this is the area to drill and this is the angle to drill at and this is the way we think the vein's going. I mean, it gives you everything will always give you a sort of a prediction from the data it has, but the geos really come into play at that point in time. So we find it really helpful in the sense of where in the project to focus and what is the prospectivity and what is it looking at to give us that high ranking of prospectivity. But then once you get the drills on the ground, then it's up to the explorationists. And so it takes the way we use it and the way it's benefiting us is we've got a huge number of targets, we've got limited resources, and we've got limited time. And so in a very short time frame, we can run all these thousands of iterations and get the right target to chase. And then we can give it to the geos and say, okay, this is what it's based all its data on. It's not a black box. You can actually see everything it's ranking in there and what's weighting it. And then you can say, okay, should we be drilling this and where should we be drilling? So for us, it's about targeting, it's about timeliness, and it's about going to the right spot in the district.
What factors influence your strategic decisions? Is it the gold price or gold price trends, geopolitical stability, environmental regulation, or anything else?
Yeah, mining is. I was actually thinking about it the other day. Mining is such a tough business because you have all of these things to manage before you even talk about geology. You've got these social impacts and the environmental impacts and the geological risk and geographical risks. And so, why the hell do we do it? But I mean, we do it because it's an amazing industry, and I think the biggest thing I look at personally is where can you make a business? I hate the idea of, and I don't want to throw mud, but I hate the idea of going to a jurisdiction. You have some geological success, you have great drill holes, you have this conceptually could be a great business. Okay, it's going to take 15 years to permit it. I mean, I'm way too young and impatient to sit around for 15 years. So I think the biggest factor for me is, can you make this into a business? And right now, New Zealand is I think the best place in the world that you can go from having the discovery to having a mine in the shortest time frame. No one's here to sit on an investment for 15 years and hope that it produces cash at the end of it. That's archaic, and the big companies can afford that. Small companies can't. So really, I think it is jurisdictional risk, and that covers the environmental side, and it covers the political risk side. It's just generally looking at the right jurisdiction to be operating in, and that's why we started Aris Mining down in Colombia. Colombia had seen by the world as a really high risk place to operate, but if you do things right and you work well with the communities there, you can actually have really profitable high grade mines, which is what Aris Mining has. Leaving Aris behind, and you think Colombia to New Zealand is vastly different. It really isn't, in the sense that you have exactly the same high environmental standards. It's just your baseline is much higher in New Zealand. In Colombia, you're there working with artisanal miners, telling them to give their ore to you rather than putting them in mercury barrels and sending it down the river. So you've got real baseline problems to fix in Colombia. In New Zealand, but in Colombia, all of the environmental regulations are really strict and well adhered to. So you need to work with communities to stop them doing the wrong thing. And you as an international company have to always maintain and do the right thing. In New Zealand, you don't have the local problem, the artisanal mining problem, but you also have the high environmental regulations. And I think anywhere in the world, you should have that, whether it's law or not. I think the days of just coming in and pillaging the earth are gone. So I think if you can get into a jurisdiction that you can see it becoming into a mine in a short time horizon, then I think you're one leg up on a lot of competitors out there that we're competing for capital for.
Yeah. And do you think other countries around the world, if they're not already, will follow suit in drastically reducing their permitting times? Because as you mentioned, going into a country and trying to build a mine that may take 15 years, and obviously you're putting investment, or not yourself, but other people will be looking to invest. Those investments will probably go to other sectors like crypto, for instance, because they're not having to wait 15 years to make big returns. Maybe if some of these permitting can be heavily reduced, then maybe investors will look, or obviously once they understand, I suppose, look more about mining. These are people that don't invest in mining, understand the industry a lot more, and see quicker permitting times, where if they do invest, the growth in obviously stocks will become quicker as opposed to 15 years. Do you feel other countries will start to follow more so, if not all countries around the world, what New Zealand have set out to do?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, so New Zealand was the front runner, and I think there are other countries have followed. So for instance, here in Canada where I sit, the federal election has just happened, and one of the big changes they did in Canada was they said, well, right now provincial government needs to approve a mining project, and then the federal government needs to approve the mining project. And a lot of it is overlap. And at the end of the day, if you as a province think this mine is good, then the federal one doesn't need to have a second layer of approval. So the Canadian government have taken forward steps in trying to reduce at least some layer of bureaucracy. I think even it's still going to take a fair few years to get anything permitted here, but the talk and the discussion is at least trending nicely, correctly. US and all the Trumpisms out there, he has a lot of hot air of things he says, and again, a good message and a good rhetoric. But I think the complexity with the US is that you still have this fight for power between the states and the federal, and who has the approval and who controls what happens in their state versus what happens in their country. And so that's the benefit of New Zealand, small country of 5 million, very much centrally run by one governing body of federal government, with NZPAM as one body. And you don't have that layer of bureaucracy to unfold that you do in bigger countries like Canada and like the US. Australia is even heading a little bit in the wrong direction, in the sense that even they're adding more layers of approvals and bureaucracy, and they're making you go through more groups of Aboriginal groups countrywide, even if they're not locally around the mining project. And we saw that last year with McPhillamys, one of the mines in Australia, that was essentially approved to be built, and then actually got their approval taken away because an Aboriginal group somewhere quite far away actually said no, it's not in their best interests. And they'd done all that work before, and suddenly when these things happen, it sends a shockwave through the entire investment community, because they say any mine in that whole state now could be subject to these same back trading principles. And so you need that government to consistently be there to say, we want to work in a responsible way, but we want to work in a quick way as well. And I think New Zealand's doing it best. I think other countries are trying. The EU even have their critical mining projects that they've identified. And I think I've forgotten the exact number of months off the top of my head, but I think they're trying to reduce it down to 2 or 3 years or something like that. So they're trying, but even 3 years, I mean, I get the need to do the studies and to make sure that you're not impacting something in a negative way. But 3 years is a long time to sit there studying something, and no other industry and no other business goes through that process. So mining is very much under the magnifying glass, and I think governments are waking up to the need for it. But I think we'll probably sit here in another 12 months and say there's some forward steps, but we're still going to be generally sitting around for 10 years waiting for mines from discovery to build.
And lastly, what's the outlook for Rua Gold over sort of next 6 to 12 months? Is there any major developments on the horizon, and is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, we're actively drilling now. So this year for us is all about drilling, and building our ounce profile. Our strategy is to we've got circa 400,000 ounces proven up in reserves right now. We'd like to get that closer to the million mark, and then we'll be in the situation where we can go into that 6-month fast track process and get into a mine. So we'd like to do that all within a year and a half to 2 years. And so we're very focused on the drilling down in the south right now. In the North Island, we haven't actually talked much about it, but that one is a really interesting one, because literally adjacent to us, and the ore bodies themselves are less than 3 kilometers apart, but adjacent to us is a mine going through that fast track process right now. And it's a monster mine. It's 1.5 million ounces of 18 gram material. So it's high grade, it's big, it's open in every direction. And we've got the land adjacent to it, and we're planning to drill that at the back end of this year. So that one is really exciting. It's on the horizon, and it's quite a near-term horizon. We have no idea what that looks like in a development pipeline, because we need to see how well the drilling goes. But all things going well, we see drills turning at the back end of the year here, and that one is a really exciting one, because as I said at the start, it's elephant country. It's big deposits up there, and so we're really excited to get in there.
Robert, thank you very much for your time, giving us an update on obviously Rua Gold, talking to us about obviously the New Zealand mining industry and what they're obviously doing with the permitting, which is really positive, encouraging to hear. Hopefully other countries can sort of follow suit as well. So thank you for your time. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they have questions, and obviously more importantly follow the Rua Gold story, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels are you on? And I know you are mainly on LinkedIn, but there's probably others out there as well.
Yeah, I don't have my TikTok and Instagram account set up anymore. That's all gone and dusted. No, I'm a LinkedIn super nerd, and then always go to the Rua Gold website. That's where all our information and the latest investor presentation will be. And you can reach out to me directly, actually, through that info@Rua Gold email address that's on the website. And there's a contact form there. Everything comes to me. And so I'm more than happy to reach out to anyone that has more questions or wants to understand more about the project.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Well, thank you very much again, and hopefully you can come on the podcast again sometime next year and give us an update.
Yeah, love to. Thanks very much,
Yeah,
Rob.
no worries. Thank you for listening. As always, appreciate your continued support. Appreciate if you can share this episode, obviously far and wide, to many people within our mining industry, because it is a significant move by the New Zealand government to reduce permitting to 6 months. And maybe if a lot more people start speaking about this, hopefully it may push other governments around the world to reduce their permitting. So we can only do this through obviously conversations, through listening to educational podcasts like this one. So please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. Thank you for listening. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.